All right, it looks like everybody is in from the waiting room. I have hit the record button so we can get started. Welcome everybody to the July Industry Roundtable call. We are excited to have you. I am Lauren Francis. In case you are new to the call, we have a pretty large group today, so looks like we have some new people and maybe some people who haven't joined in a while. So I'm going to run through just a quick housekeeping reminders. The call is being recorded. We will share it afterwards along with the slides and then any other information you might need. The entire Broadband office staff is on the call, so we are all here to provide a few updates and then be here to answer questions for you. And that's really what this is for, is your time to ask us questions, share your feedback, just get more information on anything regarding broadband. There's a lot going on right now, especially with the BEAD program and the CPF program. So those are both very active right now. So feel free to ask questions about anything going on. So to get started, I'm going to hand it to Delia Sanchez to talk about our roadshows. Go ahead, Delia.
Thanks, Lauren, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. As you know, we have been traveling around the state to host our summer roadshow. So far, we have visited 9 regions, and we have been having great conversation with everyone that we have been meeting. So if you want to attend any of our next sessions, either in person or virtually, you can go to our website to get more information about the exact times, dates, and also to get the Zoom link to attend these meetings. I will be happy to put the website in the chat in a little bit so you can get that information right away. Next slide, please. Lauren, can we go to the next slide?
Did it not go? I see workforce. Do you guys see the workforce slide?
Now I can see it. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, it's fine.
So the CBO Broadband Workforce Initiative is looking for more representation from industry and tribal communities. We are meeting as a whole group every Wednesday at 8 in the morning. We are having very rich and great conversations, and this committee is already accomplishing great stuff, but we still need more representation, as I mentioned before, in the industry and tribal, from the tribal community. So if you know anyone, or if you yourself would like to be part of this committee, please feel free to email me. The expectations are for you guys to attend these meetings regularly, of course, to provide feedback, to contribute in the discussions, and to help shape the direction of future initiatives. I'm going also to put my email address in the chat, and I hope that any of you can email me and be part of this committee. Thank you. And now I'm going to pass it to Jonas.
Thank you, Delia. All right, I'm going to go over what's going on with BEAD right now, where we're at in the timeline, and what to expect over the next few months. So let's talk about what's been going on with BEAD and where we're at with this timeline. As you may know, we just finished up our planning phase. That ran from April to June, where really what we did was design the program, started writing a lot of the documents and processes that go along with managing this BEAD grant. From there, we just recently entered into phase 1. That is our pre-application intake process, where we're at right now. So what we've done is just as of last week, we have posted our grant guidelines and the draft of our project area map that is now on the site and available for public comment over the next 30 days. Once we receive those comments, we'll start incorporating that information into the project area map and publish that 15 days after the public comment window, so that you'll see what those final project areas end up looking like. And then from there, starting in August, we begin phase 2, which is the official application intake process, where folks can then start submitting their applications for the grant. That window will be open for 45 days, and then we'll make sure we post a summary of the applications and project areas on the website. Any questions about that timeline before we move on? All right, then. Let's go ahead and jump into the details around the grant program guidelines and what's going on with that. So if you go to the website, you'll find the grant guidelines posted. That includes the application template and draft of the project areas. Those are available for public review and comments. And what you'll see is that those guidelines are very close to what we posted with volume 2. So if you're familiar with volume 2, then you should know what to expect. But we really encourage folks to go on there, check it out, and post some comments during that comment period. It's a great opportunity for you to contribute to, really just refining and improving the BEAD program as we move it forward. I want to talk about some of the key sections to check out in that document, starting with the subgrantee selection process. This section outlines how we will select the subgrantees who will receive the funding. And really the goal here for this section, it was to create a process that's transparent and competitive and that really assures that the funds are allocated to the most capable and deserving applicants. There's also the scoring criteria. So we've developed a robust scoring system to evaluate these applications. The criteria includes technical capacity, financial stability, project feasibility, and really applications that are in alignment with our strategic broadband goals. The scoring system really just ensures that we are selecting projects that will deliver the greatest impact. Also, you'll find in this grant guideline document the methodology behind our extremely high cost per location threshold, which the high cost threshold, it's a critical metric that we use to identify areas where broadband deployment costs are exceptionally high. So this section explains the factors and methodology that we used to calculate this threshold that will ultimately help stakeholders, I think, appreciate why certain projects qualify for higher funding levels. In the grant guidelines, you'll find a section on labor standards and protections. Ensuring fair labor practices and protections is really a core element of our program. We've set standards that subgrantees must adhere to, which include fair wages, safe working conditions, and the right to organize. So these standards not only protect workers, but also promote high quality project outcomes. From there, there's a section on cost barrier and reductions. We're committed to reducing cost barriers to make broadband more accessible to more communities. So this section details the measures that we put in place to reduce costs for both subgrantees and end users. It's also a section on climate assessment. This goes over the environmental considerations that are integrated into our grant program. There's the low cost options section. And really, this is important because providing affordable broadband options is essential to our mission. It doesn't make any sense to spend hundreds of millions of dollars bringing broadband to communities that ultimately can't afford it. So this section highlights the initiatives that we have incorporated to ensure low-cost broadband plans are available to unserved and underserved communities. So a lot of great stuff in this document. I really encourage everyone to go in, review the grant guidelines in detail to participate in the public comment period. It is a very long document. It's about 128 pages. So however, you can go and download the audiobook version and listen to Brandy narrate all 128 pages of the grant guidelines. I'm kidding. But please go on the website, check it out. Let us know if you have any questions. With that, I'll pause and open it up for any further clarifications or questions needed. Okay, then.
So Jonas, real quick, Kate has dropped a series of questions in the chat. And then Kate Sneed also has her hand raised. So why don't we go ahead, Kate Sneed, why don't we go to you to ask your question, and then we'll go to the chat question.
Awesome, wonderful, good morning. And Jonas, this is kind of a repeat question to last week, and actually is the same as Kate Brunk's question too. Based on the CDOT process now for access to right-of-way, there's either the access you can pay through just the right-of-way fees, or you can do the unsolicited proposal. So question around, can we inform you in the document that we plan on just doing the right-of-way fee process and not have to complete an entire unsolicited proposal if we're not planning on going that route.
Yeah, if you're planning on going the fee structure route with CDOT, then there is no reason for an unsolicited proposal, because you can just go straight to the permitting office and apply for your permit and make your payment.
Right. But if it's a required part of the application, oh, did I freeze or did?
No, I think Jonas
He
froze.
froze.
Yeah, I know Brandy's on too, and I don't know if you're able to help field that question.
We can provide clarification around that. I think there's two ways to do it, and we can make sure that we include the other way. The going through the fee structure, the right-of-way fee structure, and avoiding this unsolicited proposal piece. So, and also if you have any questions, CDOT can help advise you as well on what path to take with CDOT. So we can further clarify that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sorry about that. I think my Zoom crashed.
Yeah, we lost you for just a sec.
I went ahead and answered it, Jonas,
yeah.
while you were taking a break from the Zoom call.
Thank you, Brandy. The truth is, I was so scared of the question, I just closed the whole window. Thank you, Brandy, for covering.
Literally.
Yeah, basically, Jonas, what I said is that, you can take the fee structure way, or you can do the unsolicited proposal. We can clarify in the guidelines, and then also, make sure that you check with CDOT on the appropriate approach for your application as well, because they'll have some insight too.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's important though, just keep us in the loop with whatever path you go down so that we can support both the applicant's initiatives and CDOT to make sure that we're all clear on those expectations.
Okay, Kate Brunk has a couple other questions. That was one of them, it looks like, but a couple others. One of them is, can you confirm whether grant application preparation costs are eligible expenses?
Yeah, I believe they are. Those would fall into being eligible for our technical assistance program, which is open right now. And we certainly encourage any kind of applicants to reach out and let us know if there are costs that we can help support. There's a whole application process associated with that. We can put a link in the chat there to get more information and direct you on where to apply. But there are certainly costs there that we can help out with through that technical assistance program.
Well, and in addition to that, I would encourage you, if you're looking at pre-application expenses, that you look at the BEAD NOFO and really understand what's eligible, because some pre-application expenses are and some aren't. So I would encourage you to just double check. And if you still need help, we can certainly hop on a call with the NTIA to make sure it's crystal clear.
So you're going to follow what their NOFO standards are for? Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Everything, all eligible costs we're following the NOFO. So anything outside of that, you can assume is not eligible.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then one other question from Kate: are there any cybersecurity requirements for contractors or subcontractors for BEAD funded projects?
I don't know about that one. Brandy, do you?
Yeah, so in the volume 2, we have a whole section on cybersecurity and the standards that you as contractors and subcontractors are supposed to follow. So it's at the very end of the BEAD of volume 2, and we lay out some of the federal standards for cybersecurity. So I'd encourage you to look at those documents to make sure that your contractors and subcontractors follow them, because you will be held responsible as the applicant.
And we can follow up with these links and where these things are after the call. So because we know they're large documents. Okay, a couple other questions that have come into the chat. And you're welcome to raise your hand too if you guys would rather ask the question that way, or if you have follow-up after we read it. So I'm gonna read one in the chat from Oscar. He says, I was reading through the application guidelines for the BEAD grant program. The terms and conditions are pretty much impossible to be met by small ISPs. We, for example, service about 600 residents in hard to serve rural areas with up to 200 over 200 using, sorry, my chat is blocked by something. Licensed and unlicensed fixed wireless. I do not see the need for multiple million grants for our service area covering multiple project areas. A grant option to support / enhance the service for such small ISPs would be very helpful. Hopefully, CBO team, you're able to. I have a little thing blocking part of my chat, so I couldn't read part of that. So hopefully you guys were able to see it in the chat and help answer Oscar's question.
Guess, yeah, I'm not really clear on what the question is, other than asking for a separate grant option to support small ISPs. And I feel like BEAD, actually, the way we've laid it out, it is catered to both large and small ISPs or fiber providers, especially with the types of project areas that we've laid out and suggested so far. It definitely supports small ISPs. But Oscar, if you're able to speak up, we'd love to talk more about that.
Yeah, good morning. Just a reading through the terms and conditions. Assuming we would need a grant for, say, 500,000. Getting a letter of credit, a bond is doable, but then comes 2 years audited, keeping records. I can't see us getting a complete audit for 2 years till the end of the grant program window, for example. There's a lot of tiny things which are really hard to meet for a company which is being run by a total of 3 people.
I'll hop in here, Oscar. Yeah, so there's a lot of requirements in the BEAD program. I think that just comes with the federal territory, if you will. Federal grants are very complicated and complex. There's a lot of requirements. But what I would say to you is, I encourage you to apply because, companies like yours, quite frankly, are the only ones that exist in some of these project areas. And we don't want you to feel discouraged. So we have a lot of technical assistance to help. There is the reporting of it, the reporting on all your dollars as well. So I think, this program has, been in the works for a couple of years now, and we still have time ahead of the application to mobilize resources within companies to help with the BEAD program. And so I would just encourage you to be optimistic and still try to apply, because these project areas are very important, and I know it's a lot. One thing that I would tell you, and this is just an alternative to BEAD, the state does have a grant program for last mile and middle mile connectivity, and with state dollars, there's less red tape, if you will, and so that's an option. So I think in your question, it sounds like, is there another option to BEAD? Yes, there is. Is it right now? No, that's not. So that program will launch next year, and we'll do 1 grant cycle. It's a lot less money. But it doesn't have as many reporting requirements and just requirements across the board. We do have standards in that program that you will be, responsible for, but it's not on the scale that BEAD is. But I encourage you to apply. If you need help with anything or need any technical support, we have folks on staff to help. But yeah, it's a pretty robust program, and but we're hoping everybody applies. And there's also waivers for things. So I would encourage you to look at our website, our guidelines. And the NTI's website, they do provide for waivers for some of the requirements with acknowledging that some ISPs just would never be able to comply. So I would check those out before you rule anything out at this point.
Yeah, there probably would be definitely some kind of one-to-one help walkthrough to get through the application, because again, small company, for us it's more important to service our customers and have everybody happy out there than reading or just have to deal with all these red tapes.
Yeah, no, I know service is priority, but with the BEAD program, there's a few extra steps. So I would encourage you to start early. Don't wait till the application comes out to start putting your stuff together. the requirements and paperwork and your plans. I would start now. I wouldn't start August 30th or whenever we roll this out at the end of August. So you still have time to prepare for the application, but it's not that much time. So if you need help, I would definitely encourage you to start now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Anybody I especially should talk to within CBO about if I need support?
Yeah, Jonas's team can help you.
Okay.
So reach out to Jonas and he'll direct you to the right staff member to help you out.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, Oscar. I'm going to move on to the next question in the chat from Maisie. Can you clarify how CBO will handle BEAD situations where there is one priority project and competing non-priority projects? Would section 8.6 or 8.7 apply in that scenario? Section 8.6 states that in situations where there's only one priority project, that one will be the winner if it meets criteria. Section 8.7 states that in situations where there are multiple applications, CBO will deconflict and award project areas to a single applicant based on scores. Jonas or Randy, team.
Yeah, I can take this one. So when there's multiple applications per project area, the applicant that has the highest score essentially will receive the award. So that's how we're going to deconflict those competitive areas. And so that's referenced in the grant guidelines. So I don't know if that answers your question. It sounds like it kind of does, but if not, you can hop on and let me know if I got it right.
Thanks, Brandy. So in a situation where there's one project area that has a end-to-end fiber project application, so a priority application, and let's say 3 hybrid fiber wireless applications, you're saying that CBO would consider all 4 applications, score all 4 applications, and then pick the application with the highest score regardless of technology type?
Okay, so I'm glad you hopped on, Macy, because that helps me answer your question. So in a situation where we have like a high scoring priority broadband project, and we have, like, to your point, 2 or 3 other mixed hybrid technology applicants, what we're going to do, because priority broadband projects, fiber to the home is what we're prioritizing this program. The caveat there is the extremely high cost per location threshold. We have to use that as a tool to make sure that, okay, so we have a priority broadband project for the applicant, and this is just an example. Let's say they come in and it's $100,000 per passing, and that's kind of on the more egregious side of the scale, or the more expensive side, I should say. There's going to be scenarios where for example, that application is above the extremely high cost per location threshold. So we're going to have to make adjustments in our methodology to make sure that we're using the taxpayer dollars wisely, and maybe we consider an applicant that scores high but has other broadband technology, the mixed technology scenario based on that extremely high cost per location threshold, because we don't want to go above that if possible, and it makes sense to entertain more of a hybrid situation depending on that application. So it's not black and white. Matter of fact, we've talked quite a bit about how we would use the extremely high cost per location threshold in that exact scenario. We talked about it earlier last week, and that's how we would apply that. If we had a scenario where there was a priority broadband project, then we had other last mile technology, but it was mixed. It would really depend on that extremely high cost per location threshold.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I hope I'm not jumping the line here, but I do have a follow-up question that's posted further down in the chat that pertains to this. In reviewing the project areas in our neck of the woods, we're seeing a lot of project areas where there's literally a 14er right in the middle of the project area. And so, you've got a good bundle of houses on one side of the project area, and then across a literal mountain range, you have like 3 more locations. And according to the BEAD, and according to the guidelines, we're required to submit an application that serves every single one of those locations. And so I'm confused by whether we should submit a budget as if all of those locations will receive fiber to the prem, even if we blow the ceiling off and, you know, have to add like 10 million in cost, 5 million in cost just to get those 3 that are on the other side of Mount Princeton or whatever? Or would it be better to submit a, you know, can we leave those out entirely, which I don't think we're allowed to do that, or should we submit a hybrid application? Any guidance you can give on how to navigate that would be appreciated, because frankly, we're seeing a lot of project areas where there is literally like terrain features that are impossible to avoid right in the middle of the project area, and it's just presenting some really sticky situations.
Yeah, I'm really familiar with those sticky situations. Thanks, Macy. Yes, and when I think about that situation, I think about you guys over there. You know, I think, you know, there's a couple of things, and I don't want to advise you too much here on this call, but you know, you in that scenario, yes, you know, you'd want to try to pitch a plan that covers those areas. It doesn't have to be fiber, of course, because quite frankly, the extremely, you just blow the lid off the extremely high cost per location threshold. It might be a situation where there's other technology, another technology mix for those locations, and I would encourage you to submit that based on those project areas. It doesn't mean that, you know, your application isn't competitive. I would encourage you to do that. I'm not telling you to do that. I'd encourage you to do that because you guys have to figure out internally what you're doing. In the grant guidelines and volume 2, there's we call out those mixed technologies very clearly, so you can include those in your application. And I will throw this out there. I know Sarah Smith, our FPO, is not on the call, and we're waiting on guidance for this. But at some point, we're going to have an exercise or some guidance with the NTIA to look at those locations like what you're talking about and really determine if they're even servable. And so that is something on the NTIA's radar. They haven't given us any specifics, but in an example where we would determine that locations aren't servable would be like, you know, the cabin behind Mount Princeton that doesn't have any power and it's completely off the grid, right? So we're going to go through that scenario. I don't know when. I'm hoping soon, because like Colorado's a handful of states that are moving quickly and kind of ahead of the NTIA in some ways. But you know, we're patient. We can wait for the NTIA to catch up on some of this stuff. But there will be a conversation about, are those areas serviceable? Because at $1 million per passing, I just don't, even for fixed wireless, I just don't see it. So we're going to have those conversations, but I'd encourage you to submit an application that covers the entire project area. And then we can work on what that looks like with you once you submit. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, that does. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
All right, thanks. We're going to keep moving. There is a question about our BEAD challenge process, which Megan has actually yet to present her slide on the project area map. So Megan, I might just let you answer that here in a moment when you get to that. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. A couple more questions in regard to the grant program. So from Daniel, do these programs require the projects to not already be announced or planned to be completed? For example, if an area has already been told that a project is going to be able to be completed prior to the creation of the BEAD funding, are those projects allowed to request funds? CBO team, and then Daniel, if you have anything to add to that, please jump on.
So in our accounting of broadband serviceable locations, and once approved, because we're still waiting on approval from the NTIA for those, we were able to include it in our project area map. But the only way that a location wouldn't be able to request funding is, number one, if it's reflected on the national broadband map as being served. So we're not providing funding for served locations. It has to be unserved or underserved. Or if those locations have an enforceable commitment. So that enforceable commitment would be a BSL that receive funding from our broadband deployment fund as the state, or USD Reconnect, or the Tribal Connectivity Program, the CPF program, or SLFRF, which is State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds under ARPA, or some other grant program, because there's other programs out there that are funding as well. So those are really the only scenarios where a location wouldn't be eligible for funding. So if it's on the map and it shows that it's an eligible location and it's not served, you can request funding for it on our NTI BSL list. So I just, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. The next few questions in the chat actually are in regard to the map. So Megan, this might be a good time. Why don't we hand it to you to talk about the project area map, and then we can get back to the questions in the chat.
Sounds good. So as you all know, we published the draft project area map last Friday. The process for defining those project areas is outlined in volume 2. So if you have questions on, where we came up with that, that's in volume 2. And basically the draft map really shows our grouping methodology, and our goal with public comment is to ask you how you would group census blocks into project area. So our minimum geographic area is a census block. So going back to Maisie's question about, what if there's a couple locations on the other side of a mountain? If that's all part of one census block, we can't break that up. But if we accidentally group 2 census blocks together that created that situation, then we would love a comment that says, please split these apart again. So ultimately, we want to reduce the total number of project areas pretty significantly. You'll notice that there are a lot that have like just a handful of locations, or they're pretty small. So we want to group those together in a way that makes sense for the people who will be applying for funding and building these networks. So we intentionally kept these draft project areas small in order to get more public comments. And we'll take all those comments into consideration when we do the final grouping of project areas. The comment window is open until August 12th. I have linked the project area map page where you can submit comments, and we are also holding an office hour help session next Tuesday at 2 p.m. if you have any questions on it. And then this kind of goes into some of the questions in the chat, but I want to talk a little bit about what you can and cannot change with your comments on the project area map. So the BEAD eligible location data has been submitted to NTIA, and we're just awaiting approval for it. Those locations cannot be changed. Their classification cannot be changed. So like Brandy was saying, if it's showing up as eligible, then it's eligible, and there's not really anything you can do at this point in the process to change that. We'll have opportunity down the road if a location becomes served between now and, when we're awarding funding, to remove that location from the required list or from the eligible list. But for this part of the process, eligible locations are set in stone, essentially. We have an instructions section on our draft PAM page, which has some tips on, what can and cannot change, what kind of information is actionable for the CBO. So please read those instructions carefully when you go in to submit comments. All right, I answered a couple questions through the chat already. Let's see. And then, yeah, that Kurt's question about the CPF challenges that were submitted during the CPF process. Essentially, those aren't really one-to-one with the challenges we were collecting in the BEAD challenge process. So we weren't able to apply that information in the BEAD challenge process, and we would have needed that information to be submitted separately. And at this point, we're unable to make those changes to the eligible location list. And Kurt, if you want to hop on and clarify any of your question, or if you have any follow-ups, please let me know.
Yeah, can you take, it's just a question. I mean, so in CPF, we won a grant. Through the challenge process, through that, we lost our grant because a provider said they were going to build that area on their own dime instead of the grant paying for it. But I see that they're still in the BEAD eligible, list. So now can that other company come back and get BEAD funds to build it after they said they weren't going to need any money and they were going to do it themselves, I guess is the question. It's a weird one, I know.
It is a weird one. I'm not sure from a programmatic perspective if Brandy or Jonas want to jump in there. I think I'll have to look into that specific situation from a data perspective.
I think from a data perspective, Kurt, the map is our North Star as far as what's eligible for funding. And then also any sort of existing commitments, I think. And I think, and I know which project you're talking about. But I think maybe we would need to probably get back to you on this answer and go check our data as well. I know which project you're talking about, and I just want to, I need to go, we probably need to go back and look to see what the map says, right, about that project location.
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to make sure we're all playing on the same playing field here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we want to make sure we put everybody on the same playing field. So yeah, let us get back to you on that.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Some of the questions in the chat are pretty long, and I know Megan has covered some of them. And Megan, I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of peruse some, but the next one is from Kate Brunk. And tell me, if Megan, if you feel like you answered this question or if we need to elaborate more. It says there are tens of thousands of locations in the post-challenge locations CSV that do not match the FCC's BSL fabric. Can the CBO confirm? Oh, it looks like you already answered this, Megan. Sorry. Can the CBO confirm with the version of the BSL we should use to get one-to-one mapping of the post-challenge locations in CSV? I don't know if you want to answer that for the group. Just
yeah, so I put in the chat, we're using version 3.2 of the fabric for our challenge, or we used it for the challenge process and for our final data set. So that's one version older than what you have access to now. So keep that in mind when you're looking through our post-challenge data. And please keep in mind that's not yet approved. We're still waiting for NTIA approval, so make sure when you get that newsletter from us saying our challenge results are approved, that you download the new data set, which will still use 3.2.
And I want to highlight what Megan said. It hasn't been approved because I saw some trade associations report out on what we're doing and they said we were approved. our data, and that is not true. We are not approved. So just, yes, can't say that enough. So subject to change, as always.
Right. The next question, initial proposal volume 2 states the state will provide a subsidy for at least 15% of capital expenditures by weighing non-financial considerations in the award process and where there is lack of competition. This 15% subsidy doesn't seem to be referenced elsewhere in IP volume 2 in the grant guidelines. Can you provide additional detail on this 15% subsidy and how it will be applied by CBO? That's from Maisie.
Yeah, no worries. And you forgot the one Stephanie's comment. We are not using the CPF platform for the BEAD applications. We are using something completely different. And that'll be accessible at the end of August when our application's open.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. The 15% is a state policy. And it's something that we carried over from our Colorado Broadband Roadmap. It's not mentioned in volume 2 because that is our agreement with the NTIA, and it doesn't include any sort of policies that the state has other than following our own laws. But 15% is more of an administrative policy, not a state statute. But it does kind of reference, not directly, Macy, and in our volume 2 and grant guidelines, we do call out that for projects that don't have any for projects that are not that competitive. And so, for example, they have a really extremely negative business case for investment. The state does have to its discretion ability, we put this in volume 2 and in our grant guidelines, to look at providing other incentives to help encourage investments or work with ISPs in those areas that are just really incredibly difficult to serve. It doesn't call out that 15%, but that's kind of a nod to that sort of that policy, if you will. And so that's when we negotiate, when we're in negotiations with an ISP to help us cover some of those areas that are really hard. So but that's why it's not in there. There's a lot of stuff in volume 2 that the state does that is not in there because it's just an agreement between the state and the NTIA. So it doesn't reflect everything.
All right, thanks, Brandy. Okay, and then the next one is from Kate Brunk. Can you provide any additional information on expected word or character limits for the narratives described as required in the draft grant guidance? That's the last question in the chat.
Hey, Kate, I'm assuming you're talking about when you go into the BEAD portal that we're going to launch in August. Yeah. So we don't have that. We don't have those character limits set up right now. Like in the grant guidelines, you're not going to find that there, but in the portal you will. And we're still working on developing that tool. And so hopefully we'll be able to provide that to you soon, but you'll have all of that in that grant portal. So so you can expect it there.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I miss anyone in the chat? They were coming in pretty fast there for a minute, so I just want to make sure I didn't skip over anybody. If so, please raise your hand. Or raise your hand if you just have another question. We've got about 15 more minutes. There's been some great questions, so thank you. All right, Oscar just added one. It says there is significant discrepancies between the draft project area map and the FCC National Broadband Project map. Unserved, FCC serviced 100/100. So Megan, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So due to the timing and requirements of how we ran the challenge process, our final data set is using the version 3 FCC map. The version 4 FCC map came out, I don't know, a week after we submitted our results to the NTIA. So we were unable to incorporate that newly reported data into our challenge results. submitting public comment is for how we're grouping the project areas. And you cannot change the eligibility or the classification of particular locations at this point in the process.
All right, Oscar, let us know if that answers your question completely. Okay, Kate Brunk has raised her hand. Go ahead, Kate.
Thanks for taking all my questions. I was just wondering, the draft grant guidance described like that you'll be setting a minimum scoring threshold. And I was wondering if at any point you'll be sharing kind of what that is, so prospective applicants can like kind of calculate where they think their project might score and determine if it's like worth the investment to pursue the application or not.
So that's a great question, Kate. So that minimum threshold is like what we call like their demarcation line for the applicants that will move forward versus the applicants that will not move forward. We can't really, there's not really a good way to share it ahead of time for you because we really have to score everything to determine where that threshold is. And so I wish I could say out of the 664 points that the minimum threshold is going to be 300. I wish I could say that, but even in our CPF program and how we score our other broadband programs, we can't really share or say, all right, if you don't meet the 400 minimum threshold, you're not going to move forward. There is one, and if you're talking about total score in aggregate, I can't do that. Like we can't do that, but I do know in our primary scoring, we do have a BEAD minimum threshold. So within the scoring rubric, you'll see the minimum thresholds in those broken out. But we don't really have a crystal ball that we could be like, hey, out of all the applicants that are scoring, we think that it's this. And so please apply if you think your projects are going to be over this minimum threshold. It's a little bit of a moving target until we get all of the projects scored. So I wish I could help you with that, but what we will do is we will share the information after the fact of the scoring and where we landed on scoring. So we can share, but it won't be ahead of time other than what's in the criteria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kate Sneed, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I don't think I got off mute. The grant guidelines talk about like what will be in the application, and then as Brandy has said, when the portal is launched in August, that will be the full application. Will there be an opportunity before the portal is launched to get like a draft of what the actual application questions will be, and to kind of someone else's question around the word character limit and things like that, just so that we can start to get an idea of those questions and be working on that kind of stuff even before the portal is open?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Kate. That's a great question. Yeah, I think, yes, I think we can do that. And I think it would be good. I know some states are doing pre-registration and all these other things with BEAD. And, unfortunately for us, we didn't have a grant system before now. And so we're kind of building this tool as we go. And so I know the other states they've benefited from having a grant system. OIT did not have one. So we're developing that right now. But as soon as we feel good about the actual template, because we're working on that now. As soon as we feel good about the final template for the portal, we can definitely share that out. I'm hoping that we're going to be done with the development of the portal a couple of weeks in advance of it opening, because then we could actually go over it. And I think we'll be able to. I think the schedule has us being able to do some of that. But as soon as we know that where the dust settles on the actual portal, we can share that out so you guys can start working on your applications.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. And so Stephanie said, just for clarification, the final Colorado map will be based on version 3 of the fabric data, not version 4. And Megan said, yes, confirmed. It'll be version 3 that Colorado's final map will be based on. So just to make sure everybody saw that last question. Any other questions? We have a few more minutes.
Hey, Lauren, there's just a few things that before we close out, and I just want to say thank you guys for all these questions. This has been a really, really great roundtable, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys. So we'll take some of this forward. Please make those comments in the official tool as well, so we have it documented, and that we don't forget or lose anything. I know this is recorded, but just keep us informed and updated on anything that you're seeing in the grant guidelines. Again, I'm a huge fan of an extra set of eyes. If we miss something that's truly important to you guys and we can make it happen, we absolutely will. Biggest thing, start early. You guys have had the NOFO, the volume 1s, volume 2s, and you know, and our grant guidelines. So we've been at this for a while. So just please start, whether it's like in a Word document so you can transfer it over, or get your documents in and get ready to go, so that you have plenty of time. And then lastly, one thing about the project area map, and I think it's unique to Colorado, and there might be some other states, I can't keep track of all of them, but the purpose of asking for public comment on the project area map is we thought that it was really important for us to ask the market what they think about project area maps before we make our final determinations. We felt like that was an important first step, because I know there's areas in the state that could be served better by certain ISPs or so forth, or whatever the examples are. But this is our attempt to ask the market how we should develop the project area map. So that's really, really, really important. Probably the most, if you're out of time and you're limited in what you can review, I would say the project area map is the most important thing if you have to prioritize. The guidelines are great, but this is another version of it, of the volume 2. So this is our attempt to ask you what you think. And we think it's really important and very transparent. But ultimately, we're going to take that feedback and make our final map. So CBO will still make the final determination on the map, but we thought it was important to ask the market, have the market help us contribute to that final product, so so we can encourage those bids. So I will stop talking again. Thank you guys for your questions. This was a really, really great roundtable. So if there's anything else, go ahead and raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we can answer a few more questions and close out.
Okay, seems kind of quiet. I'm just going to move to the next slide so that everybody has the programs team contact information, which I think would be really valuable based on some of the questions that came up today. So just a reminder, the CBO's programs team is dedicated to specific regions. So you can see Ali and Michael there have specific regions that they work with. So they're great contacts to reach out to. If you have any questions or want to set up a meeting or anything like that, that's really what they do all day, every day. Jonas and Delia also are on the programs team and provide support. So there is everybody's contact information, and reminder, I will be sharing this after this call, so you'll have all of it. And then finally, there's a lot of different ways to stay in touch and informed with what we're doing. The next roundtable call for industry is in September. But you, in the meantime, should follow our newsletter. You feel free to email us to the advanced email, and then follow us on social as well. So lots of different ways to just stay informed on what's going on. So before we officially close, just one last call for any last questions or comments. All right, well, thank you, everybody. This was a great call. Like I said, I'll be sending the recording out in the slides shortly. So thank you so much.